Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show.
It may well possess a rudimentary intelligence.
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Felt a great disturbance in the force.
Hello, I'm Mr. Red.
Come on, Mark, like a dog for me.
Where's the goodies?
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
I bet you wouldn't have done anything like this if Mom and Dad were here.
You filthy criminal.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Here are your hosts, Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Because I couldn't figure out why you would throw home when we've got a 2-run lead. You let the tying run get on second, and we lost the lead because of you. Now you start using your head. Are you crying? There's no crying in baseball.
Welcome back to Everything Old is New Again. This is Douglas Viviani with the ever sportsman himself, David Cohen.
Thank you, Doug.
And that's, of course, Tom Hanks from A League of Their Own a little ways back. We're talking about that because college football has recently named their 2017 champion. The Super Bowl's a week away on February 5th. College basketball season's in full swing. So what is Everything Old is New Again going to do? We're going to talk about coaching. And what about coaching? What's it all about? It's been going on for a long time. We've got a friend of mine from a long time ago. I shouldn't say that, but from my college days, we were roommates. Tim Phelan's on the show. Welcome to the show, Tim. How are you?
I am doing excellent. Thanks very much for having me. I'm looking forward to talking with you guys.
Sounds good. He's based right now in Lynn, Massachusetts. Back in the day, he coached my intramural basketball team, the Grasshoppers. Remember that?
Yeah, the Flying Grasshoppers, I think, right. if I remember.
Based on my acrobatic drives to the basket, I guess is where we got the name from. I don't think so, but actually, where was the name from? What's a flying grasshopper? Do you remember this?
I do remember where it came from.
Which is?
I think that you and another one of our roommates took a 2-inch thick book of alcoholic beverages, and one of you flipped the pages, and the other one pointed his finger in the middle, and whatever it landed on was the name of the team.
Exactly. So the Flying Grasshopper is actually an alcoholic drink. So if you're out and about listening to Everything Old is New Again, order one right now at the bar, and you'll get a green liquid served to you in a shot glass.
And we'll pay for it.
If you email us Old New Again at Everything Else Old is New Again, we will go ahead and
wait. So this was a team that you coached or you played on?
I played on it. Tim it coached us in intramurals. And further, I had a experience coaching. I coached the intramural soccer team. Because I had a smidge of experience with that. And anyway, so we've got some experience. Tim actually right now is coaching AP girls soccer, and he's been coaching for quite a while. I'm sure the Olympic athletes back in ancient Greece had coaches even. So, I mean, we're going back from then till now. The question is, what's it all about? Coaches, good, bad, and different. Do they have any effect? Let's just listen to a little piece of coaching that I think is pretty funny from Slapshot, and then we'll dive into the topic itself right after this.
Hey, gang, let's play it smart out there tonight. I want to see a lot of work from you guys. Put your heads on the ice out there, will you? You got this dirty size. We all know how to play hockey. Just play it smart. That's right. You're not good. Stick 'em. Pop on. Let's go. Come on. We need this win, you know. We got a lot of losses to win. Yeah, we got a lot of losses. That's what we're here for, guys, to win.
I mean, it's just a piece of it. I love that movie, Slapshot. Have you seen that one, Tim?
Oh yeah, that's a great movie. It's a classic.
And that, that's the coach giving it's a real interesting aspect because the coach usually gives the talk and the teammates are all revved up and riled and ready to go. And you can see those are the Hanson brothers. They've heard it 1,000 times. They're just saying what's supposed to be said, and it's not really riling them up to anything. I don't know. So have you had an experience, Mr. Phelan, yourself, coaching, whether it be the Flying Grasshoppers or the soccer team now, where you've actually had, you think you have some kind of effect upon the game itself as a coach, or is there some other reason that coaching's important?
Well, the level that I coach at, I'm coaching a girls' high school varsity soccer team, and right now I'm sure you know that soccer is the fastest growing sport in the country, and girls soccer is more popular than men's soccer. And it's no exception at the high school level. Kids come in, they're very committed to the game, they're very committed to the program, and we play at a pretty intense level. So we really try to focus on improving somebody's skill set, their technical and their technical expertise. But also as a high school coach, you really focus on trying to improve the player as a person as well. And I think that's just as important as, winning or losing games.
And how do you do that through sports and coaching? In other words, you're telling them, I kick the ball, this is how you kick it, this is how you dribble, this is how you whatever. And that's interesting and necessary for the sport. But how do you get into the mind of an individual and help them to, advance as a person through a sport?
Sure. I don't think that anybody could be successful at any level of being a coach unless you really get to know who your players are. And during a season, you really spend a lot of time with these kids. We're together from the near the end of August through the first week of November, 6 out of 7 days a week. And there are a lot of games, there's a lot of practice time. So there's a lot of time where you're able to talk about certain things, and a lot of kids at that age will share things with you that they won't necessarily share with their parents because they're not going to get in trouble with me. And really, when the time is appropriate, you can offer your 2 cents worth. But there's also a correlation. We really emphasize working together as a team. 100% effort all the time. Really putting that time and the energy into improving yourself as a player. And I really believe if you do that, if you commit to something like that in sports, it really has an impact in the academic world and with grades with these young girls, and that's very important. And I'm sorry.
I agree with that. It can affect. Like I had an experience with coaching Little League basketball, and I did this without children at the time. I just did it because of the love of the game and coaching. And I found there was one a little bit overweight child that I had. Maybe, I guess they were about 13 or 14. And all the kids came from the same school, but they on the team, not going to say ostracized, but they weren't really buddies with this guy. For whatever reasons going on behind the scenes, I don't know. And he wasn't the greatest athlete in the world. But I was able to, I'm not going to say that I did anything tremendous anybody else wouldn't have done, but I was able to say, you know what? In basketball, if you can't shoot the ball and dribble the ball, at least you can play defense and play defense well if you have the effort or put the effort in to do that. So I named him our defensive specialist. He fouled out of almost every game, but he was on their best player, and he busted the best player's chops all the time. To the aspect of like 10, 15 games in, I noticed the difference between this player and his teammates and how they got along better because he was labeled that, he put his effort in and did what he could do to help the team, and his parents came to me at the end of the season and said, you know what, I didn't even know I was doing this. He said, you know what, his activity on this team helped him in school. All these kids are now his buddies and friends, and they overlooked whatever it was that was putting him or ostracizing him from his buddies through the sports. Have you had that experience? Does that make any sense?
It makes a lot of sense. You really you made him part of the team, and you made him think that he was valuable and a valuable asset to the team. And every single player on any team brings something. They, whether, as you put it, may not be the most gifted athletically or somebody that has the highest skill set, but whether it's, encouraging other people or cheering for them or pointing them out or helping them, warm up, whatever it may be, I think it's a coach's responsibility to make every player feel like whatever they're doing is important for the team. And it may be as the scout team preparing the starters for something, and I think it's a coach's responsibility to make sure the other players know that as well, especially at the level that I coach at, because they're young and they're developing, young adults developing into becoming adults.
Exactly. We'll be back on Everything Old is New Again, continuing our discussion of coaching in today's world with Tim Phelan on Everything Old is New Again. Come on back.
You're listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
You all know what you have to do. Remember, no one, and I mean no one, comes into our house and pushes us around. This is your game now, gentlemen. And for you seniors, it's your last one, so make it count, because you'll remember it the rest of your lives. Let's get them.
There we go. Everything old is new again. Douglas Viviani with David Cohen talking about coaching, and we're here with another member of our Rogues Gallery, if you will. Tim Phelan from Lynn, Massachusetts, went to college in Providence College with yours truly. So it paid off finally. Putting up with all my nonsense. You're actually on the air now on the radio. The friendship means something all these years later, I guess, huh? Anyway, I'd like to dive into a discussion for a moment because we talk about coaches. What are the best coaches of all time? I know we're all fans. David, you're a big fan of college basketball with the Maryland Tarpaulins. What are they called?
Terrapins. I like tarpaulins.
The tarpaulin they put over the house.
Yeah, I like tarpaulin.
They played like that this year, so they played like a tarpaulin. Back in the day, David, were you totally into college basketball, and where do you stand now?
No, I wasn't until I went to the University of Maryland.
Right.
I was into sports, not necessarily college hoops, but Maryland was a big college hoops.
Now, when you're
team.
in college, one of the first things you know, if you have a team that's in the ACC like yours was, or the Big East like ours was, you know that team. It's a lot of fun. You go to the games, but you kind of know the players, but not really just yet, especially as the season begins. But you always know the college team's coach. Mike Krzyzewski's been around, John Wooden back in the day, Dean Smith, Lou Conaseca was huge for us when I went to law school at St. John's. He was a huge influence. Rick Pitino, he was at Providence, Kentucky, right, Louisville. John Thompson in Georgetown. So are there any there that stand out to you, Tim, that you feel is one of the best college coaches of all time besides the obvious?
Yeah, well, I think that I think there's one person, and it is the obvious, and then I think there's everybody else.
Okay.
And that person's John Wooden. Right. And for me, it's not about the actual success he had, with winning so many NCAA championships, but if anybody has ever had an opportunity to read any of his books, or you hear some of the quotes that people attribute to him, and how people who've long since graduated and gone on with their careers and their lives and retired, talk about him as a father figure, and how much they learned from him, and how much respect they had for him, and one of the things that I do is I really try to, through Instagram and Twitter, really try to inspire my kids at certain times during the year, motivational quotes, and I always find myself going back and looking up John Wooden quotes, and really I think it's him and then everybody else.
See, that's John Wooden from UCLA. He won more championship titles for college basketball than anybody by far, right? How many in a row did wasn't it like a run of so many in a row? I forget what it was.
I don't. Yeah, he had a lot.
Yeah, but what made him so great? What was the inspiration? His technical ability to teach basketball, off the court stuff. What made him so great?
I think it was both. I think that he really knew the X's and O's of a game and knew how to game manage. But I think all good coaches are. There's a different skill set between being a great player and a great coach. There are, you can look through history in every single sport of, Hall of Fame players who just didn't have success as a coach. It's a different skill set. It's a different talent. And I think that, and that's a challenge, because when you are, whatever level, you're managing that player, their personalities, the relationship they have with their teammates, their families, the media, at the same time trying to win basketball games, monitoring their grades. And I think it's much more difficult than people give it credit for.
And it's a different skill set, as you said, than an NBA coach, let's say. You've seen Phil Jackson; he won title after title after title. Pat Riley is someone that is revered for sure. But I think above all, you've got one other that I think is your favorite NBA coach of all time. Is that fair to say?
It is fair to say. You have a good memory.
Of course, Red Auerbach we're talking about from the Celtics. And why is he such a big hit with you? Give me an idea. How is he different, let's say, than John Wooden?
Well, Red was Red Auerbach had his. People don't attribute these great quotes to Red Auerbach or these incredible philosophies that John Wooden may have had. But they really attribute a number of things to him. One is they don't think anybody had a knowledge of the game like Red Auerbach did. And often, with these players today, people will try really complex things. And I think he made basketball simple and wasn't afraid to do different things, but realized that, making sure that people understood what they were supposed to do. And his expectations were 100% team effort, energy, that he didn't want somebody who wasn't there to win. Regardless of how good you were or how much talent you had, he wanted somebody that had heart. And I think that's, he had a unique ability to recognize that. People like Dave Cowens, when he took him in 1970 and became the MVP as an undersized center in the NBA. But he was very coy about it as well. And I remember as a kid reading about Red Auerbach saying he went to scout Dave Cowens in college. And he intentionally left at halftime with a disgusted look on his face, shaking his head, because he knew if other people saw him there, they might think that Dave Cowens was really good, and he didn't want to give that impression.
So he was able to tell the talent, in the early stages before it was developed, let's say, right, and really parlay that into. I mean, there's a coach that had lots of different players, of course, through the years, but you're saying was able to get the best out of any of them. Dave, do you have any in mind that you feel are kind of along those lines, or no?
Well, yeah. Actually, I just had a question for Tim as a coach. Now, Tim, when you coach high school, so is the roster different every year, or do you get a lot of repeat students?
Sure. Well, it is. Well, we have kids that come back, and it's a very, very, very competitive program, and some years we have to cut players, and some years we don't. But you're always turning over the roster because you're graduating seniors.
Right.
So, and every year, you put 2 or 3 or 4 new kids on a team, and I explain this to the kids every year. It's a different team. One, they bring different skill, but they're different personalities. They're different people, and every year. It's a different team. It's not you don't replace people. I remember they keep talking about Big Papi. Who's going to replace Big Papi on the Boston Red Sox? Nobody is. They're going to have a different team.
Right. Well, along those lines, Terry Francona, you talk about like someone with today's experience. If you read his book, he had quite an experience with those Red Sox teams, and he had to really work through the personalities of these individuals, as opposed to Red Auerbach back in the day. Maybe didn't have as much of a problem with this individuality we have that we're dealing with now. Does that make sense?
Well, I don't think they had guaranteed contracts back then. They weren't making all those players had to work in the off season. You hear stories of people driving oil trucks and
right. So the motivational factor was different. Would Red be as successful as he was then? Now, do you think? Short answer. We got 15 seconds.
I think he would be, because I think he would have grown up in this culture as well. But I don't think you could take somebody from a different time frame and just drop them into a different time frame.
Right. All right, we'll be back, and everything old is new again.
Now, back to America's entertainment pop culture talk show. Everything old is new again, with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Forget about the crowds, the size of the school, their fancy uniforms. And remember what got you here. Focus on the fundamentals. And most important, don't get caught up thinking about winning or losing this game. If you put your effort and concentration into playing to your potential to be the best that you can be, I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game, in my book, we're going to be winners.
This is Douglas Viviani, the winner of Winners of Everything Old is New Again, along with yet another winner, David Cohen. And we are with another member of our growing Rogues Gallery of guests, Tim Phelan, who is talking about coaching. And I just wanted to get into this section, speeches in movies. And because when we think about coaching, and if we talk about someone that's necessarily on the outside looking in, I think that's the first thing people think about are these inspirational quotes and speeches that coaches make behind the scenes. First of all, do those speeches ever happen, Tim?
They do. They do happen. They happen at all levels.
And that one, I don't know if you remember from Hoosiers or not. Is that one that is a favorite of yours, or you don't think it's realistic?
Well, I think it's a great movie. I think, and I think it is realistic, depending upon the time frame. And one of the things I think all coaches want, to give these great Newt Rockne type, speeches. But I think you have to pick and choose when you want to do it. You can't do it every single game, or it's just going to go, in one ear and out the other.
Right, like the like we saw earlier with the in Slapshot with the Hanson brothers, right? Let's take a look at a few more. We've got Rudy, if you remember this movie, and it's not necessarily the coach, but it's a coaching type of philosophy discussion that they had. Take a listen to this one.
You're 5 feet nothing, 100 and nothing, and you got hardly a speck of athletic ability. And you hung in with the best college football team in the land for 2 years. And you're also going to walk out of here with a degree from the University of Notre Dame. In this lifetime, you don't have to prove nothing to nobody except yourself.
All right, so again, more inspiration, more life philosophies. So, I mean, is the coach our armchair philosopher of the day? Are you another form of Aristotle, young Tim Phelan?
That's a great way to put it. Rudy, another great movie. We were talking, I think a year or so ago, and somehow this movie came up, and somebody joked around and said they should make Rudy a requirement to graduate from high school in America. Yeah. And, they're watching that movie, and really it's a great lesson that's, provided in that movie. It's interesting because I think Joe Montana came out and said it's not real life. It's not exactly how the way it happened, but the movie is still great.
And Montana was on that team with Rudy, is what you're saying, and that was a team from Notre Dame from back in, I guess, the 70s, right? With this player that didn't have much stature physically was able to kind of be in there with the biggest and best.
Yeah, I loved it because he, it took him forever to actually just get accepted into the school as a student, and then he tried out for the football team, and he was, he was short and weighed $1.0, and he was on the practice squad, and to be officially on the roster, you have to actually dress for a game, and the very last game of his senior year, he had never dressed, and he dressed, and I think he played the last 30 seconds of the game in an inspirational, event.
Yeah, think about that. He was there 4 years just practicing with the team. I'd love to know here's the next movie. What did he do with his life after that? I'll have to research that, and we'll come back and visit that one. How about The Karate Kid, a favorite of mine?
Yes, sir. Mr. Miyagi, it's over. It's over. Forget about it. No. I'm afraid. Just get out of here.
Must not. It's okay, lose to opponent. Must not lose to fear.
Yo, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of him, all right? What do I do?
You stay focused. Tell us how your best karate still inside. Now time, let out.
Nice, huh? That's inspirational. Now, when you make a speech in the locker room, do you get that music in the background automatically, or do you have to play it?
Well, first of all, my speeches are on the field. So,
yeah. So you bring a Walkman with you, though, or play, whatever. You play it out with the speaker, I guess, huh?
Yeah, if I walked into the girls' locker room to give me a speech, it's probably my last day of employment.
All right, there you go. That's why I'm not listening to you. I guess I didn't remember that part of it. Let's listen to Rocky 5. Real true motivation, I think, right here.
See that? This is the favorite thing that I have on this earth. And Rocky Marciano give me that. You know what it was? His cufflink. And now I'm giving it to you. And it's got to be like an angel on your shoulder, see? And if you ever get hurt and you feel that you're going down, this little angel is going to whisper in your ear. He's going to Say, get up! Because Mickey loves you. Okay?
Thanks, Mick.
All right.
I love you too.
Go after him, kid.
I don't know if you remember Rocky V. Not many people even saw it or liked it, but that I had to cut it a little cursing there. But that to me was the only good part of that movie, but was a great aspect of that movie because he kind of showed some motivation through symbols, and of course for emotional feeling between the coach and the athlete. Is that something that you've experienced or think would be something that would be worthwhile, maybe with an individual athlete as opposed to a team, like a symbol like that?
You know, I think it would. But first of all, just going back to Rocky, I think after Mr. T, I'm not sure if I've seen another Rocky movie. I'm not sure how many there are nowadays. I think 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 kind of blend together for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, one of the, it's not to jump around a little bit and avoid your specific question, but one of the things that I think is great about motivational speeches in sports movies and the message that they're sending are the fact that so many young people, male boys and girls, are gravitated to, a sports themed movie or a motivational movie. So it's a great way to get a message across to that young age group as they're building their character and who they are. And we all know it's, they listen, everybody listens to their parents, but, sometimes it's tough to get that message through. And, from being as a teenager, there's so often a generation gap and parents wanting to do the right thing, but, that communication, isn't always the way you want it to be. And I think this is a great tool for that.
Right. So, I have a situation, my wife really was never really into the athletics, especially team athletics. So I have a young girl and a young boy, and there's this discussion of sports and what Leo or Angelica is going to get out of them. What should we do it for? And I do present to her this topic all the time where, it's not just about kicking the ball or catching the ball or hitting the ball. It's about more than that. It's about, like, if you're in a marriage even, that's a team. There's teams in work. There's teams everywhere. And if you don't know how to be a team player and delegate things and trust others to do their job and back them up and support others when they're down, then I don't know that you're going to be successful in life, if that makes any sense, no?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. My son, who was physically a good athlete, was one of those kids that didn't have a competitive bone in his body. And when he played youth soccer at 5 and 6 years old, he was the kid, picking up worms during the game as the game is going around him. And, he'd come back, who won? And he wouldn't even know. And, but we encouraged him to play, and we signed him up because of the camaraderie, because of, the sportsmanship. And, we knew he wasn't going to be any, type of high school star or a player, but, it was the lessons that you learn elsewhere, the working hard, working together, working as a team, picking up somebody when they're down. I really think great life lessons, as you pointed out.
Yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge that, and part of that is, of course, the coach. Part of that is the team, the players on the team. But as he's kind of experienced, if the players are not on the same page, that coach, the right coach, can get them on the same page together, where they're having a great experience long term to learn a life lesson, at least a little life lesson, if not a big one, through sports. And we'll be back on Everything Old is New again with Tim Phelan to continue our discussion on all things coaching.
This is Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
There you go, Rocky himself and Rocky Balboa. Did you see that one, Dave? Well, Dave saw that. Tim, did you see that one or no?
I think I've seen them all.
Right.
but don't ask me to tell you which one is which after the first 2 or 3.
Well, this is Everything Old is New again. We're back with Tim Phelan talking about coaching. That was a quote from Rocky Balboa. Not necessarily coaching, but that was sort of, if you will, life coaching to his son. And that was in the movie where after 5, he came back basically as a retired boxer. He's done it a couple of times. But gave some interesting and important advice, I think. And Rocky's movies, all those Rocky movies, have one thing in common, is that motivation, that inspiration, that one-on-one coaching, as we talked about a few minutes ago, before or different than the coaching of a whole team like Hoosiers, let's say. And I think that sometimes an individual coach for an individual sport might have more of an effect upon the player than a coach for the entire baseball team, let's say, or not. What do you think, Tim?
Oh, I thought you were asking David. It's I think you could have the same group of players or the same team, and bring in a different coach, and just because of that coach's personality is different, the delivery could say the same exact thing, but it may be taken a different way depending upon their relationship with those individual players. And you mentioned baseball and Terry Francona earlier today. I can only imagine the challenge of a 162 game season, 8 months out of the year, grown men with their families, the people skills that need to be involved at that level.
Right, with, by the way, all those players making more money than most of them making more money than he is, just saying. Players characterize themselves how important they are based on that number, too.
Sure, counting at bats and people's personal problems and personalities, and I'm not playing as much, I might get traded, I'm a free agent.
Right, read his book. He goes into it in detail. It's amazing. I want to focus a smidge more on now the local amateur coaching, such as the Bad News Bears with Walter Matthau. Give it a couple seconds.
I told you not to swing, you idiot!
What's the matter with you? Next time I tell you to do something, that you do it or else you're off this team. And the rest of you, what's the matter with you? All season long you've been laughed at. Now you got a chance to spit it back in their faces, and what do? You're out there like a bunch of dead fish, not listening, bonehead plays, mistakes. I mean, don't you want to beat them? Get out there now and do the best you can.
All right, just a smidge there that had to kind of compile that. First, he's upset that a kid didn't take his advice and swung at a pitch and struck out as opposed to not swinging, which would kind of like stifle the kid's personality and or ability to possibly get a hit. And then he realized he was out of control as a coach of 12-year-olds and said, all right, wait a minute, let me pull back here. Just go out and have some fun. Have when you've coached Little League, I know I've experienced this, have you seen coaches on both of those where you've got a coach that's too easy versus a coach that's too hard on the players?
I have seen coaches. I used to coach CYO basketball, 10, 11, 12-year-olds. And there would be coaches there were parents who were coaching who, were kind of full of themselves a little bit and would coach the game with the intensity of an NCAA championship game and yelling and screaming and full court pressing where, a kid has trouble enough not dribbling the ball off his knee, and, our co-ed teams and the only thing that matters is winning or losing at such a young age. That's not the coaching philosophy that you want. At that age, you want the kids to enjoy the game, to like going to practice, they don't want to get yelled at, they want to have fun.
Right. I've seen, David, I know you had your son involved and even had a Yankee player's son on the team overlooking the coach and what was going on. What, if any, experience did you have with that kind of, you have... Tell us a story.
Yeah, well, I coached my son's Little League team for a few years, and he was the most disinterested player on the team by far. And I think he was just showing up because, I was his dad, and he had to play. But we had one of the kids we coached was Jorge Posada's son. And Jorge was he showed up at a couple of games, and the father did. And, I was directed by the league commissioner to make sure that Jorge Sr. was involved and participated in the warm-ups, and that we went through all the specific drills we were supposed to go through to make sure that we were impressing Jorge. But with all that said, he was a very, very laid-back guy, and he never offered advice unless we asked it. So he was sort of the ideal parent. In other words, he was a guy you can always go to if you had a question, but he wasn't standing on the sidelines and, like you were saying, Tim, trying to help out or coach like it was the World Series. So it was actually a really good experience. I felt a little pressure to make sure his son, played a lot because his son wasn't very good, but at that age it really didn't matter. Everybody got equal playing time. But I felt a little more pressure to keep Jorge Jr. out there.
Sure.
So I
got it.
Huh?
But Jorge Posada got it.
He understood.
The idea
he
that,
totally understood.
So if a pro that's almost a Hall of Famer, not necessarily, but
he could be.
He could be, but at least a player of high quality, a champion is there and not on your back. About your coaching, shouldn't the rest of the establishment of Little League, so to speak, notice that? That not every kid is going to make it to the majors. In fact, only 830 of them or something like that do. So let's have some fun along the way. I think the other thing is, if you remember Jimmy Valvano, coach of North Carolina back in the 80s, a team that was really never really that strong. He won a championship one time, beat Dean Smith out in his own league, and then the championship of all of college basketball. Had cancer and passed away, but before he did, he gave some words of wisdom that I think is really summarizes to me what a great coach is all about. So let's just listen to that. We'll comment.
How do you get through life or each day? It's the same thing. To me, there are three things we all should do every day. If we do this every day of our life, you're going to have, what a wonderful, number one is laugh. You should laugh every day. Number two is think. You should spend some time in thought. And number three is you should have your emotions moved to tears. Could be happiness or joy. But think about it. If you laugh, you think, and you cry, that's a full day. That's a heck of a day. You do that 7 days a week, you're going to have something special.
Now, certainly he had more to say there, but that was the essence of it. And I don't know, Timmy, did you ever hear that speech, and or was that the first time you heard it? What do you think?
No, that's. I think I might have even seen it live at the time it happened. I've seen it, 1,000 times since, and with the award they've named after him, and and that was that was just it's one of those things. If sometimes it pops into my head, I'll Google it and watch it on YouTube. Because I think he closed at the time. It was something to the extent that cancer might be able to take my body, it might be able to take my mind, but it'll never be able to take my heart. And it's really, it moves you to tears. And I think he's really sending the message to what's really important in life.
And he is coach of coaches, a life coach that shows, I think, the epitome of how important coaching is. Thank you for your time, Tim. Thank you for your coaching. Continued good luck, and we're looking forward to having you back on Everything Old is New Again.
Great. Thanks for having me.